Okay, so as I was saying, I'll go through how you win the game first, because that's the most important thing. If you don't remember anything else about the tutorial, just remember that. Then I'll go through everything that comes in the game box, explain the mechanics of the game, everything piece by piece, the mechanics of the game, and you will not remember that. You will not be expected to remember any of it. You will probably remember less than 10% of it. But the point is, during the game, when you see that piece, you'll go, oh yeah, I remember what that was for, right? And you won't have to ask so many questions during the game. Then finally, I'll go through an example turn and stuff like that. So this is how you win. This is victory point track. Get up to 14 victory points, you win. Right, and the actually maybe I should just put this on the floor because then I'll take. Up basically everybody else and wiping them out of the game. But this is very, very, very difficult. Getting to 14 victory points is very much easier than that. Getting to 16 victory points is easier. To win this game with military victory, you need to occupy the home systems of more than half of your opponents. So if this is an 8-player game, your opponents are 7. So half of them would be 3.5, more than half would be 4. So you'd have to take 4 more home systems in order to win. It's possible, but it takes several turns and probably everyone will gang up on you, so it's unlikely to happen. The last game we played, someone actually won by military victory, which was really cool. It is possible to be eliminated from the game, but only if you have no presence on the board at all. Also, it's possible to leave the game. If you really, really hate everyone and hate the game and really don't want to play anymore, we've had to write some house rules which allow you to actually leave gracefully, because it's a 14-hour game. If you really hate the game already after 7 hours, you don't want to stay for another 7 hours. Okay, so we have methods to allow you to leave the game. If you do leave the game before the end, then you will help the people sitting next to you, because they will have more territory that they can conquer. So you've got to be aware of that you're actually probably handing the game to one of those 2 people. The thing about this game is that the victory points are very sequential. If someone's on 10 victory points and everyone else is only on 5, let's say, they're pretty much going to win the game, almost guaranteed, unless everyone gangs up on them. So if someone's on 10 and someone else is on 5, the person on 5 is almost never going to catch up to the person on 10, unless everyone nips at the heels of the person on 10 points. Because you can only get a certain number of victory points a turn, it's going to be 1 or 2. Something like that, then somebody having a lead is a clear lead. If someone's 1 point more than you, they're winning with respect to you, and you should be attacking them. You shouldn't worry about the people behind you because they can never catch up. Okay. And so don't worry about that. Concentrate on your own game and what you're doing and how to maximise your victory points. Don't worry about, don't try and not attack the people behind you, because if you attack the people behind you, you don't just weaken them, you weaken yourself by losing forces, attacking them and spreading your forces out more thinly. So try and concentrate on attacking the people who are coming out in front of you. It may be very scary to do that because they might have huge fleets of people, but in order to win, you've got to stop them from winning first. Right? Otherwise you're never going to win and someone else will just win. In this game there are, that's just the 2 ways to win, 14 victory points and the military victory, which is basically impossible. But if you're sitting on 0 victory points and you just want to build a huge fleet and not spend any money trying to get victory points and see what happens, then it might be fun as well. So, next thing. Right. Races. Things in the bag of races. So every race will have a bag. There are many different races in the game. There are like 16 different races, and we'll all play one of those races, or 20 races or something like that, and we'll all play one of those races. In your race bag is everything you need which is to do with your race, apart from what's on your race sheet, which is also in the box. So in your race bag you have your home world. I won't talk about planets for the moment. You have, you have trade agreements, you have councillors, flagships, special technologies and trade agreements. Right, so let me go through the pieces first, because that's the easiest piece. There are these little flags. The flags are control markers. If you have a flag on the victory point track, everyone will have a flag on the victory point track that moves up to the end. That shows you who's winning. Each of the races has their own different symbol. So this is the Jolnar symbol, and we have the Arborek and the Hakan, classic races there. Then there's these flags, these little control markers. You can use for anything you like. You have an unlimited supply of control markers, so if you run out of these, we'll find another race that looks like yours and you can use those instead. When you are on a planet in the game, if you leave the planet with nobody on it, you still own it. To signify that you own it, you put this on. Victory cards. When you claim a victory card, when you claim victory points, you put one of these little flags on it to say you've claimed it. And that's how you know what you've claimed, and at the end of the game you can count them all up if you think you're not on the right point on the track or whatever. What else? That's basically it. Then these guys, these triangle pieces, are double-sided. One way up, they're the command counters, no matter how you think about it. Command counters, and when you flip them upside down, they represent how much of a fleet you can have in any one hex on the board. So you'll have several stacks of these during the game. There might be some on the board, there might be some off the board, but these, when it says command counters, this is what it's talking about. Then there's these guys, the leaders. Most of the time throughout the game you're dealing with huge fleets of ships represented by single tokens. So one individual plastic piece that looks like a fighter represents a whole squadron of fighters, which is all their support crew, everything you need for those fighters, or all the supply ships, everything like that. So it's thousands of people, right? This is just one guy. Just one guy. So the movement rules which apply to other ships don't apply to just one guy, right? Normally, if you want to take battalions of ground forces from place to place, you need special carriers. Because it's hundreds of thousands of people, you need a special thing to carry that many people. This is just one guy. You don't need a special thing. You can put him on a fighter, you can put him on any ship, any installation, anything, or leave him by himself on the planet. There's several different types of these guys, and the Jolnar, all the races have different versions. This is the first thing where the races differ from each other. So the Jolnar has 2 scientists and 1 admiral, and we'll come back into what these guys do later on when I get the right part out of the box for that. Okay, so also in your race bag you have these cards for your homeworld. We'll go into what all these cards do later on. We have trade agreements. Each race starts off with 2 trade agreements in their hand, and the trade agreements are for you to give away to people, to influence them. When you give them a trade agreement, they will get money. They will get money equal to the amount written on here. Money in this game is represented by trade goods, these little icons, these little pieces which are in the box as well. We'll get to those. And they represent all the money that you can physically transfer between people. You can make bargains with people, you can try and make bargains with people at any point during the game. But agreements, most agreements, aren't binding. You can lie and cheat and steal and whatever, right? There's no, apart from that we're playing by don't be a dick rules. So don't do things specifically for the purposes of just pissing people off, okay? So don't say, okay, yeah, I want to attack that guy. If you don't attack that guy, I'll give you 5 trade goods next turn. Don't do that just don't do that with the thought originally that you're already not going to give them the money. But there's nothing to stop you actually just promising things and not delivering. There's no mechanic that stops you doing that, apart from specific binding agreements which are in a specific phase of the game. But trade agreements can help you influence people. When the trade section of the game comes up, you'll have the opportunity maybe to swap these cards with people. So I have 2 of these cards, Aiden has 2 of these cards, and we can swap them. and we can only swap one. So I can swap one of mine for one of his. I put this down in front of me. The next time the trade turn comes up, I will get one trade good, and Aaron will also get. Hayden will also get one. We can't trade twice with the same person, so if instead we traded the higher cards, which I have a 3 and he has a 2, during the trade phase I'll get 2 goods and he'll get 3. So it's the number on the table in front of you that matters, not the number on the table in front of them.
This has just 3.
Yeah, exactly. I think the hacker might even have 3 trade agreements.
They have 2. Oh, so okay.
So all the races have their own little little quirks. For example, the Hakan are space lions, right? They're lions. They're the drug dealers of the game. Most of the time, when you there's conditions under which trade agreements are broken as soon as you go to war with somebody. You can also break trade agreements with anyone whenever you like, but the Hakan have special powers when it comes to trade agreements, which don't allow you to break a trade agreement with them. Then I think that's it for the trade agreements. You have your own special technologies. Each race gets 2 race-specific technologies. Everyone in the galaxy will be able to buy a given set of tech, which is the same as everybody else. And there's a big and complicated technology tree. Right? It's a very complicated technology tree, and it takes a long time to understand it. These 2 tech are specific to your race, and they will enhance the existing abilities of your race in some obvious way. The Jolnar, let's see what this one is. When an opponent activates a system you control, gain 3 trade goods from the trade supply. So if somebody starts trying to attack me, I get more and more money. These race-specific technologies have a cost on the top. This cost is in addition to any cost which is required to purchase the technology normally. So normally tech costs a certain amount depending on which cards you have and what planets you own and things like that. This is in addition to the base cost of technology. Then every race has a flagship. The flagships are the only actual units which are different between the different races, and it's represented by one ginormous plastic piece that sits on the board. You can only have one of these at a time, you can only build one of them, whereas for most other ships you can build multiple. And everyone is different, including things like how fast it can move. If you have a flagship that can only move 1, you kind of suck. Right, it's only used because movement is a big thing in the game, and the galaxy is really big. So movement 1 flagships are kind of crappy. So just if it's a movement 1 flagship, you probably don't want to build it. You also get each of them will have a different number of hit dice they roll to determine how much damage they do to the enemy, and but they all cost 10 to build, basically, or thereabouts. They can also carry some stuff, and they have special things. Each 10 rolled by this ship during a space battle counts as 3 hits instead of 1 hit, which is cool. Right, then you have 3 cars which are councillors. They're all councillors. Representatives even, sorry. They're called representatives. During the phase of the game, which is the political phase, you'll send a representative, if you have one, to the Congress, like the Senate in Star Wars or something like that. And this person will be responsible for voting for you, right? Or voting the way that you want. They might have a little bonus that they give to your votes, right? But they also have special abilities, like they were assassins, which kill other people's representative, and if your representative has been killed, you don't get to vote. Right? There's one race, the what are they called? The forgot the name of them now. These guys, anyway. The kind of the Necron virus. The Necron virus. They are the Necrovirus. They are a intelligent computer virus, and their only representative is one guy who walks into the council chamber, blows himself up, and kills all other representatives. They can never vote in any political agenda, but they can stop the vote from happening at all by killing everybody.
What happens when the vote doesn't happen with the law? It just doesn't happen.
Doesn't happen.
Okay,
yeah,
so you just have a He just has a veto.
Boom! Yeah,
whole
but it can kill a lot of people. So this is one thing to be wary of. If the necrovirus starts sending people into the castle even though you can't vote, be worried about it.
So do they have like 3 people like everyone else?
Like everyone else,
do this
yeah.
3 times.
They only have one that blows up, I think. And they have other ones that do other funky things, like pick an outcome, and if someone if it goes that way, you get this many monies or something like that. I can't remember exactly what it is.
When your councillor dies, you can't use him ever again.
Yeah, he gets back in the box. Some cards allow you to resurrect councillors, but
So you can turn out to have no councillor
Yeah.
before you can vote ever again on anything.
no. But once you run out of councillors, you just don't send one. Don't send a representative, and then you're fine.
Oh, you can vote without sending a councillor?
Yeah, if you don't have any, you just vote normally.
And you can't be denied that vote?
Yeah. Yeah. So if you have to send a representative, if all of your representatives are dead, then. But lots of people just send guys that give you like this. Gain +1 vote for each technology card you have researched. So can be a lot of extra votes. Okay. So that's everything that's in the race box. Could you put that back in the box for me? Okay, next. Right. Units. So these come nice in the box with the units that looks like this. Right? There are many different types of ships in the box, all with a little description on this little card that you'll also find nicely in the box. So if you forget what any unit is, look on this and it'll tell you. You'll also get a list of the units on your race sheet, as well as this one, right? So we have many different types of units, and I'm going to go through them all individually. So we have the ground forces.
Sorry if I grab a box.
Oh, not in the mechanist unit yet.
So you have the ground forces. These guys are your grunts, they're your space marines. These guys, they're represented by little flags. They are what's used to take new planets. You drop them from orbit into the planet and you take it, right? Now, they fight on a 7. During combat, you roll a die and have to get greater than or equal to the battle number, and it's a 10-sided die, so it's a 30% chance of hitting. Right, and then which is reasonably good. They can get hang on, wrong side of the sea. They hit an 8, which is a 20% chance of hitting, which is reasonably good. When you get some certain technology, this can improve, and all these numbers are subject to the caveat of apart from when it isn't equal to that. Now, ground forces. When you build them, you can build 2 of them for a cost of 1. So you build 2 of them, it costs 1. Each production centre you have, each space dock around a planet, each production centre will have a limited number of units it can build in total, and the total number of units, if you build this, is still 2, because it's 2 things, right? As opposed to most of the other things in the game, ground forces are the one of the 2 things where you can build an unlimited number of. Everything else, apart from ground forces and fighters, you can only build how many plastic pieces you have in the box. For the ground forces, you put the numbers +1, +2, +3 underneath them, and you can build as many as you like, but you can only have a number of flags equal to how many there are in the box. So you can only have this many combat forces, basically. And that's it for ground forces. When they're dead, they're dead. Then the equivalent unit in space is the fighter. Fighters are small things, they can't fly by themselves, they need to be carried on a carrier or be flying around a space dock. Fighters only hit on 9s or 10s. So they have a 20% chance of hitting, like 9s or 10s, right, of course. And again, you pay 1 monies, and you can build 2 of them. So these guys are really useful because they can be your cannon fodder. When you're assigned hits, you decide what dies, right, as the defender. So if you take enough fighters in, they can all just be taken on the fighters, and all your big ships with the heavy guns can stay around. In battle, it's most optimal to have a range of different ships in this game. You want to have a lot of small ships and a couple of big ones. If you just send in a couple of big ships, yeah, you're going to take out some of theirs, but you're going to lose a lot of money because they cost so much. So this only costs half a unit, right? 1/2. The biggest ship, the CERN, costs 12. Right, so 24 times as much as this guy. And it can get hit twice before it dies, but if you bought 24 of these, they can be hit 24 times before they die. And it's much better. So the other great thing about fighters is that they don't count against your fleet supply. Now I told you about you could have these pieces, these little triangular pieces, face up with the little ship symbol showing. That how many you have face up in a stack on your race sheet represents your fleet supply, which is how many capital ships you can have in any one hex before they start to die. Because they can't be supplied enough, and it basically is at the end of your turn, once you've moved into a place, it's whether you can supply them where they're going. That's your fleet supply. That shows you how many supply ships you have kicking around to go ahead and do that kind of thing. These guys don't count against it, so you can have 100 fighters in there. But they need to be carried on carriers, and carriers only have a limited capacity, and carriers are capital ships, so they have capacity 6. You can carry 6 fighters on them, and if you have a fleet supply of 3, then you can have 18 fighters and 3 carriers in the system. That's not a problem. Okay, then on to slightly more complicated ground units. We have these guys, mechanized infantry units. They cost 2 to build, so they're 4 times as expensive as the ground force is. They fight much better though. They hit on a 6 instead of an 8, and they roll 2 die instead of 1. Right. So it's really cool. They also sustain damage. So if they get hit, turn them on its side. Second time it get hit, it dies. But you only have 3 or 4 of these you can build ever. But they're really, really cool. I mean, they are really cool, and building them is worth it. Right, so then you have, in addition to units you can have on planets, you can also build facilities on planets. One of these things is a planetary defense system, a PDS. Looks like this. This is the ion cannon from Star Wars, right? You put it on a planet, it protects the planet. When people try and land on a planet, you get to shoot at them to try and kill them on their way down. When somebody enters the system with their planet in, you already get to shoot at them as soon as they activate the system. So having one of these on a planet is a good way to protect it. They cost quite a lot, but there's lots of technology which improves them as well. They also stop the planet from being bombarded from orbit, which is a real pain in the ass when that happens. Okay. Then we have the other facility on a planet, a space dock. 4 even. And they orbit around a planet. So when you build a space dock, you decide what planet it's on. You can only build a space dock somewhere that you've had for the entire turn. Right, so if you just took a planet, you can't build a space dock on it. Okay. Then if you just build a space dock, you've probably activated the system. In an activated system, you're probably not going to be able to build any more. So it's almost like you're going to have to wait 2 turns from when you take a planet to when you can actually build something new on it. The next turn will be basically build a space dock there. The turn after that will be build some more stuff there. You only have 3 space docks in the game. So be careful where you put them. And be careful what you try and build with them. When you decide what to build, then you're basically building things on the planets where the space docks are, and those might be, if they're close to your enemies, that's great, but it means also that they can come in and sit somebody next to your space dock and stop you from building at it. You can't build any ships at a space dock that's blockaded, which is where you have an enemy ship in the area. Now a space dock has a number of people that can possibly build, a build capacity, which is 2 for having the space dock there, plus the resources value of the planet that's below it. So this can be anywhere between 2, if it happens to be on a 0-something planet, to like 10 or something if you have a really awesome planet. So these are that could remember if now this is the other thing. If you're dividing that amongst small ships like destroyers or whatever, or ground forces, you won't be able to build so many of them. You'll be able to build a few of them, right? But you'll be able to build like 6 or 9 of them or whatever, depending on the production capacity. But if you have the money, you could also build 9 dreadnoughts at the same place, right? Which would be a much better fighting force and need less fleet supply. So, when you're deciding what to build, it's key to maximise your available fleet supply and build as many ships as possible. Be aware of your money. Okay, so that's facilities. You can build more than one space dock on a planet, but it doesn't really do anything apart from increase the production capacity of the planet by 2, which you don't really need. Then you give more than one space dock in a system if it has more than one planet in that same hex. You put a space dock on each hex, and that can be quite useful because then you get to use both production capacities at the same time. Okay, then we have destroyers. Destroyers cost 1 to build, have not that great an attack. They only hit on 9s or 10s, but they're really good against fighters. In the first round of combat, or every round of combat, before the attacker rolls any die if they have fighters, or before the defender rolls any die if they have fighters, each dreadnought gets to roll 2 die to try and take out the fighters. Right, so it's a anti-fighter barrage. They usually get to roll 2 die and take out the fighters. So it can be really good against fighters, but you need to have a lot of a lot of destroyers, and they cost twice as much as the fighters do. They're also capital ships, so they count towards your fleet supply, whereas fighters don't. Destroyers start with a base movement of 2. Most of the things have a movement of 1. Right, then there's carriers and cruisers. Carriers, the workhorse. These guys are used to carry fighters, ground force, PDS, mechanized infantry through the galaxy. So this fighters have a capacity of 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 6 would be fine. Okay. Any combination of units as you like, that adds up to 6 things. Then these have a base movement of 1. This is the main way you're going to invade planets. You move from one place to another. You drop dudes on the planet. It's yours. You get the resources for that planet. They're pretty lame in combat. They only hit on a 9 or 10, which means basically if you've left a carrier alone somewhere, somebody can just fly in and blow it up. If they really don't like it.
You answered my question then.
So you want to probably have a couple of fighters on each carrier, something like that.
So why are destroyers good against fighters again? So they have battle 9, which I guess is hitting 9 or 10.
9 or 10, but they roll 2 die when attacking fighters, and the fighters only run 1 roll back. Also, the destroyers, the defender, when they hit, the defender removes the casualties straight away, so they don't get to fire back. Normally combat's simultaneous, but there's these points that aren't simultaneous.
Isn't there an anti-fighter barrage that happens before the battle?
That is the anti-fighter barrage. The destroyers versus the fighters. Okay, then we have cruisers. Cruisers are a very versatile ship. So they're quite good in battle. They hit on 7s. They cost 2, so they're twice as much as destroyers. They can move 2 to begin with. But cruisers also have a technology which you can buy called stasis capsules, which allows you to carry 1 dude on cruisers. Right? So this is why they're sometimes really, really good, because these are combat ships and they can carry a guy on them. They can't carry as many guys as the carrier can, but it gives you that extra versatility. And they can already move 2, whereas the carrier starts off with a base movement of 1. So one key thing is that if you can move 2, it can go to 1 hex, pick a guy up, take him somewhere else and drop him off. Right? Or go forward and back to redistribute or resupply. So cruisers are really useful, and there's lots of technology which increases their combat capabilities. They're also the only ships which can lay mines, and we'll talk about mines later. Then we come to the biggest ships in the fleet, the Dreadnought. If you have a fleet entirely consisting of Dreadnoughts, well, awesome. Dreadnoughts are really good. Because you're limited by fleet supply, having individual ships which can do a lot of damage does make a big difference. Dreadnoughts cost a lot, they cost 5, right? So it's 10 times more than a fighter. But on battle they hit on 5s, which is actually not as good as 10 fighters, right? Because by normal statistics, but it's still pretty darn good. They start off only moving 1, which is quite slow, but if you get Type 4 drive then they can move 2. And they have sustained damage. So if they get hit, you just turn them on one side. There's a technology that means every time something gets hit you can flip it back up again. So you can make them almost invulnerable, as long as they don't get hit twice in a row. Then they can bombard planets, so if you come across a planet that has no PDS on it but has enemy units, if you have a few Dreadnoughts in the system, you just blow the crap out of it. And that's another reason why they're really useful. You just wipe the slate clean. If an enemy has ground force on there, every time you hit, you take off 1 ground force. If there are no ground force left and you hit another time, you remove the control marker. So you don't even have to land anybody in order to wipe the person from the face of the earth.
You need to hit though? Or it's
you need to hit. The Dreadnought can do the bombardments. Dreadnought and Warson, but only those two can do bombardments.
Okay.
Okay. Then we have the Warson. The Warson is half of a Death Star. Right, there we go. There's a Death Star. That's a Warson. Just like its namesake in Star Trek, in the Star Wars, it's really, really a horrendous thing. It's a space station. It's not. There's no moon. It's really, really nasty. It costs a lot to build. You need to have a special technology before you can even build one. One of the races starts with that technology. They are awesome. They're called the Embers of Murat. This is a fleet by itself. It's basically the equivalent of having 2 Dreadnoughts and a carrier with a load of fighters in the same location. To start off with, it can move 2, so it's already faster than Dreadnoughts. The battle, you roll 3 dice for this guy, all hitting on 3 or higher, right? Which is an 80% chance. Oh, well, it's 70% chance, 80% chance of hitting. Right, so only 1 or 2 misses. And it can carry 6 things, which, if you're smart, is like 2 fighters and 4 ground force, something like that. It has sustained damage, so it can take 1 point of damage before it's dead. Also, it only counts 1 towards your fleet supply, as opposed to that huge fleet you'd have to have in order to take it out, right? So it's really good. If you can build these guys, it's good. Like a Warson full of fighters, a Warson with 6 fighters, is almost the optimal amount that you can physically build for that amount of money. The optimal amount you can build for that amount of money is actually the equivalent number of destroyers. But you don't have that many destroyers. It would be 15 destroyers, and you don't have them. Actually, you only have a few. The other thing is that those 3 dice sitting on 3s can also be used for bombardment, and a Warson can bombard through PDS. So you roll 3 dice and go boom, and the planet explodes. Right, so there's also
that's a special Warson thing. So
that's only Warsons can do it. So the Warsons are really awesome because you can't build 15 destroyers. If you could build 15 destroyers and move them around everywhere, then that's what you do, but you can't, so the Warsons are the next best. Okay, so then the last thing is your flagship. There's only one of these, and you're free to decide whether it's the shark and goes this way, or whether it's some kind of big spacey human-like thing and goes this way around. This is the only thing in the box which is different for every race. And this depends on that card that you had in your race pack. So I can't describe these to you. All I can basically say is that sometimes they will be better than a Warson. If they are better than a Warson, build it first. There are only 2 Warsons in the box. if it's better than the Warzone, you have 3, which is better than everybody else. Now, if it's not as good as the Warzone, don't build it. If it only the basic rule of thumb is if it only moves 1, forget about it. And unless you really have something to like. Mechatol is Coruscant, right? It's the centre of the galaxy. It's where the Galactic Council sits. It's where we all sit. It's where we send the representatives somewhere else on Coruscant. It is exactly like Coruscant after episode 3. So it's been basically obliterated. It used to be this wonderful single planetary city. Now it's kind of in a recession, and that's why it kind of looks smoggy. Controlling Mechatol, landing forces on Mechatol, is widely acknowledged to be an expression of power. Taking Mechatol is you have stationed guards outside of the Senate. It is Julius Caesar invading Rome. That's what it is. So there are major benefits to it. There are a lot of victory points which rest on who controls Mechatol. It's very far away from everybody at the start of the game. Right, it's right in the centre of the galaxy. We will be maximally far away. Unless you're the wormhole aliens, it takes you a very, very long time to get there. It takes Mechatol. It's almost certainly because they have to get some crazy victory condition, which is like have all of my dreadnoughts on the board and have them all orbiting Mechatol, or I own Mechatol and have 9 units here, 9 ground units, something like that. Which takes ages to build, especially because this only has a resource value of 1. So if you have a space dock here, you can only build 3 things a turn every time you activate it, which is a waste of time. So this is an example of a planet. This is a very big planet. Mechatol is very big. It doesn't matter how what size they're showing on the board. This is an entire area of space in which there is 1 habitable planet, and that is it. You can keep any number of ships there, whatever, within your fleet supply, and you keep any number of ground forces and whatever on the planet. It doesn't really matter the physical size of the thing. The first number in green represents the resource value of the planet, which is how much money you can get from that planet. The second value in red is the influence that planet gives you, which basically represents its population. How populated is the planet? How many votes do you get in the Imperial Senate if you have that planet? Right. To use the resources of a planet requires you to exhaust it. In the game, that means tapping the card corresponding to the planet. When your card's tapped, you basically can't do anything else with it, with that planet. So you lose the influence as well as the resources. So for a planet like Mechatol, you're probably never going to spend the resources because you want the influence during the vote. But after the vote's happened, if it does happen, which it will if we're playing an 8-player game, you can go ahead and tap it as you like. Right.
So when you're building using resources, it's not just the planet with the space docks on, it's all the planets you control.
You can spend money from anywhere. Okay, so then every race will have a home system. For example, there's Earth, or Jord, in this crazy version of the future where the Norwegians have conquered the Earth. This is where the Federation of Sol starts. Only 1 habitable planet. It's a shame there's no Mars in this system, because you'd think that we'd get to Mars before we went elsewhere in the galaxy, but apparently not. No.
The moon of Jupiter.
Yeah, the moon of Jupiter. So here, resources for influence 2. Right, 1 planet. Now there are races that start with multiple planets in their home system. There are races that start with awesomely huge planets in their home system. And there's the Creus guys, who start with just a wormhole in their home system and also a separate home system off the board that nobody else can get to. Your home system is special. In order to claim any victory points, you have to own all planets in your home system. So if someone's winning the game and you want to stop them, taking 1 planet in their home system is enough. They can't claim anything anymore. And this does decide who wins or loses often at the very end of the game, as somebody can surprise attack who was going to win just before they're able to claim the victory points. If someone is sitting a fleet next to your home system, then it is a threat. Protect your home system. Whatever you have to do to protect your own home system is fine. It's not being a dick to attack somebody if they're in your home system, right? Do protect it. Your home systems have yellow borders. Lots of victory points, lots of victory conditions, lots of secret victories require you to be in or next to other people's home systems. It is it's a really nasty thing to base camp somebody and keep attacking their home system over and over again. But if you have to do it for the victory points, do it. There are secrecy rules, that means you can't say that, right? So it might look like you're being an ass, but you say, listen, there are reasons I can do this that I'm not allowed to tell you, and people know it's something to do with victory points. So don't get annoyed with people if they attack you for reasons of victory points. If they just attack you because they like attacking people, that's not good. But if they attack you for reasons of victory points, that's fine.
I assume that most people are trying to camouflage their victory points as just being a dick.
Well,
because
you hope so. You're right. If you knew in advance what somebody was going to do in order to score a victory point, you should stop them. You shouldn't help them do it. This is another thing, right? Because that means that they are more likely to win. So when somebody, if you get into a pact with somebody that you think might involve victory points for them but not for you, it's bad. Right? So think about things. Don't help people get their victory points. Just don't do it, because it really is a silly thing to do. You don't know who's going to win, but you just made it more likely that they will win.
And they are not you.
They are not you, right? It's okay. I can't find the Hakan here, but
However, agreements that give both people a victory point are often very helpful for both people, especially if you're beating them.
especially if you're beating them and they don't realise. Right. Here's the Jolnar. They have 2 planets, Jol and Nar. There should be a Hakan for this one. Oh, well, I split the home systems too. Yeah. Now, the Jolnar are fish people. They're very smart, big fish brains. But they're lame in, well, they're very smart with their big fish. They're like cephalopods. But the Jolnar have a drawback that they're really crap in flight, in space, in combat and things like that, because you pierce their water suit and they die or whatever. There's for some reason they got soft fishy bodies, just like us, yeah. But so they're really bad in combat. But systems will be a certain distance from each other. You won't be able to get there on the first turn to someone else's home system. You probably won't be able to get there on the second turn either. Okay, good. Next. Some more home systems. Right, so let me leave that out for now. So, systems with planets. There are 2 types of systems with planets. Ones with multiple planets, like 3. Ooh, nice. And ones with only 1 planet, which are in this bag. So, here's an example of a simple 2-planet system. There are 2 planets, 1 resource, 2 influence, 4 influence. When you come into a multi-planet system, you can land on both planets, or all the planets, at the same time, from 1 ship. That's fine, because you've activated that system. Activating a system represents basically being able to do whatever you want in that system. You have almost an infinite time. Every turn isn't just like half hour or something like that. It's mobilising armies, moving light years through space. It takes years to do this thing. So every turn is a year or so. Every single thing you do is a year or so. Each planet has a name. Each planet has a card that you will have in front of you. Now, there might be these symbols on planets. These symbols are technology bonuses. Every planet that you have with that technology bonus gives you 1 discount, irrelevant, independent of what planet it is, 1 discount off that technology. I think it's 1. Anyway, I'll check it up. It's 1 or 2, I can't remember. So it gives you a discount on that technology. There's several different colours of technology. Here's green and red and blue. There's also yellow and that's it. these discounts don't apply to your race technology, because your race technology is not coloured. It's just your race technology, so you can't get a discount from that. Landing a scientist on a planet doubles the bonus. Okay, then there's special planets. Yes, these ones. Planet with a trade outpost. Trading outposts. You can't land people on it, it's just a space station. Whoever flies through that system, as soon as you fly through it, you own it, you put one of your flags from your race thing on it. This fact that has a symbol after the name means it has a refresh ability. The refresh abilities happen at the end of each turn. In this case, it's something to do with trade goods. It says it on the card for the planet though, exactly what it does, so you don't need to know. If you get that, then you'll need to know. In this case, it's at the end of each turn, you can exhaust the planet to get 2 trade goods, which is very versatile. Normally, if you exhaust the planet, you only get the 2 resources, but since the trade goods can be used for resources at any time, or implements, trade goods can be used for anything, and to bargain with people, this is it gives you extra bargaining power to have this. Okay, what else do we have? We have nothing else cool. There's the yellow technology. There we go. Right, there are wormholes. Let's put wormholes next to them. You don't want this next to your home system, because then people can come and invade your home system very easily. But there will be wormholes that appear randomly on the map that you didn't know were there to begin with. There are going to be lots of wormholes in this game, because there are 3 separate galaxies and they're all connected. That's so that we can have 4 people on one table, 4 people on another table, and a central galaxy where we can all duke it out. So it might be that the whole east half of the galaxy and the whole west half of the galaxy ally against each other. Or it might be that each of them battle within each other until a supreme obvious leader comes into the middle, and then those 2 leaders fight it out. We don't know. But hopefully everyone will be nice to each other. So wormholes. A wormhole can come in this game, maybe up to 4 different types. A, B, C, D, 5 different types. A, B, C, D, and E. Well, actually it's alpha, beta, C, D, and epsilon.
Okay.
Which is stupid. Because they say something like, here's alpha, beta, and then it's C, D, and epsilon. Is good. For the purposes of movement, and for movement only, any 2 systems with an alpha wormhole are considered adjacent to each other.
What?
Adjacent to each other, so you can move with a value of 1 through the wormhole. But for any other purpose, anything else that says choose 2 adjacent systems does not apply to wormholes. Okay, so it's only for the purposes of movement. Right, outside of the galaxy, we're going to have a few orbiting clustery things, like this guy, the Wormhole Nexus, which in our game is going to have an A, B, and C wormhole in it. It's the pocket in the middle of all the wormholes where they happen to collide where a planet is sitting. It's like the Prophets or something like that from DS9. It's really cool to own a wormhole nexus because you have so many options about where you can attack, and towards the end of the game it's really powerful to have it because you can come out. There'll be at least like 4 places for the alpha to come out, 4 places for the beta, and 3 places for the C. 4 places for the C. So you get loads of places you can really go whomp and attack wherever you like. If you're the wormhole aliens, what you're going to try and do is take the wormhole nexus to stop other people from also exploiting the wormholes. So you take the wormhole nexus and you'll sit a huge fleet there, and then if you boost your movement capability, you'll be able to reach the entire galaxy from it. There's also going to be the Kraos homeworld. If we have the Kraos, these are the wormhole aliens. They sit off the map. Their home system's off the map. Nobody else can get there. It has the D wormhole. Only they can use the D wormhole. There's one here, one at their home base, and one on their mothership, their flagship that flies through the galaxy. So it's really cool because they can move people from their home system to their mothership straight away, no matter where their mothership is.
If they're winning, you can't stop them by attacking their home system.
No, because they're always going to own all planets in their home system.
And they're the only ones that can deworm their pets.
Yes. There's also boring bits of space. We call them empty space. onto the special systems. There are many different types of special system. The red bordered system. When you are building the galaxy, the red bordered systems cannot be placed by you next to other red bordered systems. So they'll be kind of spread around. Unless you're forced to. Sometimes you're forced to. You also can't place them next to people's home systems. Unless you're forced to. Right? So let's go through a few different ones. Supernova. I don't think I need to explain that, do I? Can't go in there. If you happen to be in there, you're destroyed. If something randomly makes you go there, you're destroyed. There are a couple of random events in the game which turn things into supernovae. There's one race which can turn a whole system into a supernova at will, and they're pretty cool. The Murat. If no one's a Murat, it'd be a shame.
So does that influence adjacent hexes or just that one?
No, just that one. It is in the process of exploding. Well, it's a very large area of space. If something exploded, it's too dangerous to go into that area. Everything else is fine.
Okay.
Asteroid field.
No, just like 5
You can't stay in an asteroid field. If you're in an asteroid field, you get bombarded and blow up. If you're somehow forced to stay there, so if you can't make it through, then you can go through an asteroid field only if you have the special technology called anti-mass deflectors, which allow you to push all the asteroids out of the way. Yeah, that's basically it. Iron storms and nebula have similar effects. When you're trying to leave an iron storm or a nebula, your movement speed is reduced, and you have and different combat effects happen if you're in an iron storm and a nebula. So it's one of them fighters don't work, and one of them defender gets +1. It's like the nebula in iron storms in Star Trek, basically. Gravity rift. Gravity rifts are cool. I mean, it's kind of like a black hole kind of thing. They can give you pluses to movement if you have a technology. If you start next to a gravity rift, then they can give you pluses to movement. If you go through a gravity rift, you need to roll a die, and there's a certain chance that your ships are moving through will be destroyed. Right, and that's well, exactly this I will come up later. So this is pretty much it. Most of these things will be placed on the board already. Certainly some of them will get to place themselves. So here is a planet in a nebula and a planet in a gravity rift. Pretty awesome. These are pretty cool, and these will be in the centre of the galaxy, and people will be fighting over these quite a lot. They're really just cool places to be.
Ah, a planet in a nebula.
Yeah, we know.
I felt like one that's got zero influence, you know, because
can't get out. Right.
Yeah.
So it says, "Oh, the planet in nebula." No, you don't. The nebula planet one is a bit like the Star Trek Final Frontier.
Oh yeah. Sort of here now.
Random box full of other tokens. Okay. Right. Other tokens. There is a big box here full of tokens. 10-sided die, which do combat. I'm hitting on 7s. Ooh, I got 2. Yay! Defender decides which 2 die, but not until after he or she has already rolled their die, and they also get 2. So we both kill 2 people. If it was a 2-on-2 ground combat hitting on 7s, everyone would be dead. The defender would retain control of the planet. Fighter tokens. These are the things you put under the ship, under the fighters, to say you have more of them. Right, this is a mechanic that gives you an unlimited number of fighters. If we run out of tokens, which we probably won't do, but if we do, you can just draw more tokens. Right? Okay, make them up. Same for the ground forces. +1 tokens and +3 tokens. So if it's a stack like this with a guy on top, it's 5 because it's +3, +1, plus the dude on top. Right, you can always ask people at any time what technology they have, how much resources and influence they have. Everything's public information. The only thing you're not allowed to talk about is the secret things that say secret on them. And you're really not allowed to talk about them, like secret objectives and stuff. You can't tell people that why you're doing something or what. These are trade goods, 3 trade goods, or 3 trade goods.
You can
Can't say yes or no.
confirm or deny.
Yeah. You're not allowed to insinuate anything. Trade goods are one of the things you can transfer instantly between people, and it's very few things that you can do that. So if you need to bribe someone, if you're like, okay, I want you to attack this person, like, well, I'm not going to do that. Well, I'll give you 5 trade goods if you attack that person. Or, I'm going to blow up this space dock, if you tell them. But I'm then going to pay you the 5. I'm going to pay you 4 that you need to construct it, plus 1 more for the inconvenience of having to build it again. If you need a... Right, of course you can lie, but you destroy it and then you give it them back so that they're not annoyed with you and don't come after you and wage war on you, right? So this is a useful mechanic. There are bonus tokens that we won't be playing with. There are artifacts. At the beginning of the game, all these little tokens will be placed randomly in the central galaxy on planets. When the first person successfully lands on that planet, they flip it over. It might be an artifact, like this, which is going to be worth a victory point. Right? Or it might be empty. Might just be a rumour that's unsubstantiated. So all these guys have, or basically almost everywhere in the middle of the galaxy will have have an artifact on it. And this is a way that you can kind of win unexpectedly. Because if you're on 13 victory points and you need that 14th, you get it in the middle of a turn by landing on this. And as soon as you get that, you win. Right? So these are like 3 victory points scattered throughout the galaxy, waiting for people to save them. Don't take them unless you can defend them. Because people are going to attack you. And
so
there's no point
there and they can turn hands and and they're either victory points or not victory points.
They're either victory points with this little symbol on, or they're blank.
So when someone gets there, it becomes turned over and is public.
Yep.
So you can pretend to be defending something that isn't there.
No.
Then you have to land on the planet.
Yes, you need to land on a planet. A control marker. Once you land on a control marker is good enough, but you probably don't just want to leave a control marker. Or maybe if you are only looking for planets and you didn't want to start a war, you reveal the outside and go, crap, I'm going to abandon the planet and go somewhere else because I don't want to start a war over here. Okay, there's extra wormhole tokens, which we'll be basically playing with all of them. To interconnect our 3 big galaxies. This is where we get the Epsilon wormhole. So then we also have mercenaries. Mercenaries are really cool. They have special abilities, and each of these mercenaries has a card. You can only get a mercenary, recruit a mercenary during the trade phase, and every time the trade phase comes back up again, you need to pay them. They can sometimes hit really well, like this guy, space combat hits on 5. So, like, really good, better than most of the other stuff. Ground combat hits on a 7, so the same as everything else. It's like a fleet when it's in space and it counts towards your fleet supply. It's like a ground force on the planet when it's landed, right? And you flip it over one way or the other to say where it is. They also have special abilities, these mercenaries. Some of them are really awesome. Some of them just let you do amazing things in the game that nobody else can do, and so then other people try and steal your mercenaries off you. There is a mercenary that lets you steal other people's mercenaries. Domain counters. On every neutral planet that is yet unexplored, basically, there will be one of these tokens on it. They are both good and bad, right? The ones closest to you will be relatively low risk, low reward. So they'll be like, 2 trade goods, great. Or, hostile natives. It might be somebody else actually already owned that planet and forgot about it was thousands of years ago or whatever. This is then settlers even. Settlers, something's called. Fighters might suddenly appear in orbit because there's some outdated defense system, automated defense system. Hostile natives, an actual automated defense system, which will try and blow the crap out of you if you find it. The ones closest to you will have quite a lot of benefits, but in small ones. The ones furthest away from you will have quite a lot of negative things and huge benefits if you find them. There's one planet which will have the Lazak survivors on it. That's where some of the Lazaks hid after the end of the last war.
Oh, right, yes.
I don't know whether that's really good or really bad.
It's bad if you kill them. Then you lose your entire hand of action cards, you have no vote in the next political agenda, and things like that. Now, domain counters will be on planets. Okay? The way they're revealed is as soon as you land on them. So, carrier, 2 guys, 2 fighters, on a planet, coming into the system. I decide, if I have fighters in the system, I can, instead of landing, I can look at the counter. Instead of landing. If I don't have any fighters in the system, then I don't have that option. It's only fighters that can do this probing thing, probe plans. So then I can say, okay, I'm going to probe this planet, I'm going to land on this one. Okay, so I look at this, and that one just flips over and happens. Each of the different domain counters has a different rule, and it's all written on the back of a sheet that everyone will get.
What would the benefit be of landing 2 ground forces?
It's always good to land 2 ground forces because of biohazard and radiation and hostile natives.
So if you haven't, probed.
Yeah. So I can't remember which one it is. One of these 2 kills the first guy who lands on the planet. So only if you land 2 will 1 survive and you'll be able to take it. Right? One of these kills everybody who lands on the planet, and then the token goes away. So, if you land 2, they'll all die, but at least you didn't land 4.
Yeah.
Right? So landing 1 or 2 is fine. Landing more if you don't know what it is risky. But there's also hostile natives. Lots of these are strength 1. In combat in this game, if you have an advantage of people of 2 to 1, that's how you win battles. You get a 2 to 1 advantage over your opponent. Only attack where you have a 2 to 1 advantage, and you'll win combats. You might get unlucky with dice rolls, but that happens all the time. But 2 to 1 is what you need. This is the Lazak survivors. If that planet that I probed happened to be the Lazak survivors, it's a victory point. So this is a victory point hidden somewhere in the galaxy for anyone who wants to go around probing planets all day, which is really boring. If anyone played Mass Effect 2, then they know what I'm talking about.
So these are hazard counters. Like you initially land and they go away, or
they go away if you successfully land. And this adds a random element at the beginning of the game, which slows down people who overexpand. People who overexpand do get benefits from that. I mean, they get lots of money from having their new planets, but they also get screwed over by the domain counters. So people who expand first into the dangerous locations get screwed over. So it's a equalizing mechanism. Then on all the empty space in the galaxy, anywhere that doesn't have a planet, there will be these guys. These are like the domain counters for planets, except they're in space. So they're called Final Frontier Space domain counters. Now, the way we play these is slightly different to the original rules, so because basically if you play the original rules, you never ever see what's on these. Because empty space is something you just fly through, you never stop in it, right? So how we play it is, when you are flying through space with one of these in, you flip it over and see what it is. Because there's some of them that's like a supernova. I mean, it doesn't really make sense to have flown through there 1,000 times, but only when you stop there for it to explode and become a supernova. So you try and fly through, and it might be, empty space, nothing happens. A big red cross is fine. Okay, nothing happens. Derelict ship, get free stuff. Big alien wobbly thing. It's probably going to kill you.
Microscope, giant microscope.
This is a scientist advancement, and you get like a free technology chosen by the player on your left or something like that. A beta wormhole suddenly appears in the system, which can be great unless it's next to your home system. Alpha wormhole, because these places in space are really difficult to defend. Nothing happens. Big boogly wibbly thing. What else is there? There's one which is supernova and one which is gravity rift. So be careful about those. If you fly through the supernova one, it'll flip over. If you have no other choice but then to have flown through that, then all your ships are going to be destroyed because they've just flown through a supernova. Now, if you had another choice, you can go a different way. So if you activated 2 adjacent systems, but you can move 2, and you thought, okay, I'll just fly this guy through there to see what it is, and it's a supernova, then, okay, I got to the edge of that space, I saw it was a supernova, and I went the other direction, I could easily go. Or if you have so much movement that you can go around it. Otherwise your ship's probably going to be destroyed.
Plus like a house rule.
Yeah, right, otherwise it makes no sense. Otherwise you have to sit there where there's a supernova and watch it destroy your ships. Right. Space mines. Cruisers in the production step of the production phase, whatever, of the when you can build stuff, when you can normally build stuff, you can deploy mines from cruisers. It costs 2 resources, I think, 2 or 1. That's 1 or 2.
Everyone always forgets that.
And they're really useful because when post PDS, which only get to fire once when a ship enters the system, these roll 1 die for every ship that's coming in. So if someone comes in with a huge fleet of fighters, you roll 1 die per fighter, and every die that says it, they only hit on a 9 or a 10 or something, but they're destroyed. So either you choose to blow them up or not. It's useful to have in places that you need to defend, like your home system and stuff like that. It's a useful deterrent. It's not because they cost so little and they just sit there, and it doesn't count towards your fleet supply and stuff like that. So if you have extra money, that's the way to go. Shock troops. Shock troops are like these little +1 symbols. Okay, so just like these little +1 symbols, they can't be alone. I'd have to have a flag on top of this for it to be 2 guys. I'd have a flag on top of this for it to be 1 guy plus a shock troop. If there's a shock troop left by himself, he just turns into a flag, which is not a shock troop. Every time I roll a die that's a natural 10 in combat, there's the chance that that guy might have survived to become a shock troop at the end. Now, if I roll a natural 10, and nobody on my side dies, and I had 2 guys, one of them's going to become a shock troop. If I roll a natural 10, and I had 2 guys on my side, but one of them dies, then shock troop's always the first casualty, so it's the shock troop that was there. Okay, if I have 7 guys, and 1 guy dies, it's the shock troop that's there. So I have to not lose anybody.
Or roll a bunch of 10s.
Or roll a lot of 10s. So they're hard to make. They're really, really good in combat. But it's hard because you only have a few of them. It's hard to get them in places that they're needed. There's a planet called Hope's End which automatically generates shocks troops every turn, which is really cool. That's near the centre of the galaxy, near Mechatol Rex.